The Running Man, America's favorite game show.
I can't remember the first time that I saw The Running Man, but I was probably like 8 years old or something, and I caught it on HBO several times as a kid. I mean, obviously it's awesome. Those yellow spandex costumes are so iconic. Schwarzenegger, I think, has some of the best Schwarzenegger one-liners of any Schwarzenegger movie. The synth soundtrack is badass. And then Richard Dawson as Killian is such a slick and funny movie villain. I mean, I just love it. I love it. This is a movie that I would always find myself rewatching every couple of years. And the more that I watched it, the more I realized I liked it. It would always pull me in and get me to watch all the way to the end, fully immersed. Years later, I realized it was actually a Stephen King movie. He's not credited on the movie because he actually wrote it under his alter ego, Richard Bachman, at the time. And while the movie is set in the year 2019, the original book version, published back in 1982, imagined a dystopia America in the year 2025. Pollution, corporate dictatorship, economic collapse, everyone poor as fuck. The future that King described doesn't really feel like fantasy anymore. It feels familiar. You know, for most of my life, I think movies like Back to the Future Part 2 shaped what a lot of us thought that the future would be like. You know, hoverboards, flying cars, cool jackets and cool tech, great economy overall. But when we actually got to the year 2015, let alone 2025, we didn't end up in that future. So that got me thinking, was The Running Man one of the most accurate sci-fi dystopias ever made? So in this episode of Prophecy of Cinema, we're diving into the 7 prophetic themes from The Running Man and how this 40-year-old story might be one of the most accurate depictions of the future that we're moving into today. After the Stalkers, Sub-Zero, Buzzsaw, Dynamo, and Fireball all failed to kill Ben Richards, the audience is left stunned. No runner has ever gotten this far before. But instead of honoring the promise of freedom, the network schedules a final showdown. Richards versus Captain Freedom.
No pain, no gain.
But when Captain Freedom refuses to participate in the sham, the network decides to fabricate the entire fight using body doubles and high-tech CGI.
We're loading Richard's image onto the database, and when he's mapped onto the stunt double, you'll never know the difference.
Sensational. I love it.
The crowd erupts in cheers, fooled into believing that they just watched Richards die, when in reality, the whole thing was a lie. Prophetic theme number 1, reality is manufactured. Now, I remember rewatching that scene like 2015 or so, probably like 10 years ago. And I remember specifically thinking, there's no way the computers could ever do that. That's a little far-fetched to be able to take a body double and put on an exact replica that would fool the audience. Well, boy was I wrong. Because not only are computers able to do that now with AI, they're doing it better than we ever imagined. It was literally just the beginning of last year that I was editing an AI video for a client who wanted me to generate all these clips, and it looked awful. It looked like nonsense. Most of the stuff that I cranked out, nobody wanted to look at. It was slop. Well, it's not just slop anymore.
The White House claims to have negotiated a fantastic deal with AI, granting it control over national weather in exchange for always sunny weekends at Mar-a-Lago.
To enhance border security, White House unveils plan to train bald eagles as patriotic aerial surveillance units.
It's so good it can fool you now. And every month, it keeps getting better. We are now standing at a threshold where the line between what's real and what's fake is vanishing. What's going to happen when entire narratives on the news, events, and even people can just be generated from scratch and broadcast as the truth? The Running Man predicted this. It predicted this AI tech falling into the wrong hands, falling into an authoritarian technocracy and used to fool and control the masses.
Ticket agent and security guard Richard shot at point-blank range when he arrived at the airport.
But that's not true.
It showed us that digital illusions could overwrite real life and that perception could be programmed. And that once this technology existed, it wouldn't just be used, it would be weaponized against the public to control them. How did The Running Man predict this eventuality? Well, here's what most people looking back at this film 40 years later might miss. It was a commentary on what was happening in real media at that exact time. In 1987, the very same year that The Running Man hit theaters, President Ronald Reagan eliminated the Fairness Doctrine. That doctrine had required news broadcasters to present opposing viewpoints on controversial issues. Once it was gone, partisan media was no longer just tolerated, it was basically incentivized. And so the problem is, when the news becomes partisan, it becomes loyal to power, not to truth. A partisan news network will lie, distort, and omit in service of the side that it supports. And that's not journalism, that's propaganda. The Running Man understood the dangers of that shift, and it foresaw a world where media isn't a check on power, it's a weapon of power. And today, with AI technology advancing faster than regulation, we're closer than ever to seeing that dystopian prediction fulfilled. Eventually, this is going to happen, and once it airs, millions of people will believe it. Some will defend it, but most will never question it. Once media becomes an arm of propaganda, truth no longer is part of the equation. The Running Man predicted this with eerie precision. Right now, at the time of me recording this, we're at the "this is possible" moment. That could certainly be possible. But in another year or so, we might be looking back at this and going, oh yeah, the news did start doing that. And that's when people had no idea what was real anymore. The Running Man here was right. Prophetic theme number 2, entertainment as mind control. In both the book and the film version of The Running Man, we see wall-to-wall entertainment used to keep the population quiet, distracted, and obedient. Massive TVs broadcast the show across poor neighborhoods, where people may not even have shelter, but they have the feed. Office workers, pedestrians, everyone is glued to the screen. Forget having housing or healthcare in the future. What the government will ensure that everyone has is a giant TV screen. Whether you're in a cubicle or a cardboard box, you're expected to tune in and cheer on state-sponsored murder.
What's the #1 television show in the whole wide world?
As Killian reminds us, it's the world's most popular game show, and you don't want to feel left out by not watching, do you?
Hey Charlie, you see The Running Man last night? I never miss it. I even won $500.
While that was written by Stephen King in 1982, imagining the year 2025, cut to the actual year 2025, and we now live in a very similar version of that same reality. The algorithm-driven attention economy.
And they have, I think to some degree, affected our behavior with the world and with one another and how we build and what we build.
We are all now caught on our devices, swiping cat videos and liking memes while the world outside of us declines and vital institutions are being dismantled. But most of us are too distracted to notice all that. This idea of entertainment being used to control the population isn't new. Thousands of years ago, the Romans had a name for it: bread and circuses. Brutal gladiatorial games, theater, and cheap thrills were used to keep the masses docile as the empire crumbled beneath them. The Running Man updated that concept for a media-saturated society. When the economy collapses and when trust erodes and when the people are very pissed off about their way of life declining and having nothing, you don't try to fix their problem if you're an authoritarian government. Instead, you give them death as a distraction.
Kill that son of a bitch!
And let's be honest, who wouldn't want to watch that? And from the system's point of view, that's a very effective strategy, actually. Because when the people are distracted, they can't protest, they can't rebel, they can't demand better. You pacify them, and then they feel disconnected from the outside world. And that way, the problems that they see on their screens, well, that becomes someone else's problem. Somebody's problem out there that they can't really do anything about because they're busy watching their screen here. And today, we feel more disconnected than ever. We are all, myself included, addicted to our phones to some degree or the other, caught in a loop of short videos and shiny content, stuff that distracts us for hours on end. And here's the thing. It creates this feeling that all of the real problems, like the climate crisis or the rise in inequality, you can just scroll past that. Don't like that post? Don't click on it. Just scroll away. Someone else will deal with it, right? But what happens when everyone else is scrolling away like you are? Now look, things aren't quite as bad as they were in The Running Man. I mean, we don't quite have gladiatorial games to death on TV yet, but we might be closer than you think. How far off are we, honestly, from a streaming platform that is just desperate for ratings, desperate to compete against the other 24 streaming services, and also the decline in viewership, and also the fact that people can't afford these streaming services anymore, being like, you know, guys, if we did this for real, it would be a huge hit. I mean, as things decline, that might start to make a lot of sense to some streaming service. It'd be funny if Disney did it first. And here's the scary part. The Running Man didn't just predict that. It showed us what people were willing to accept as long as they're entertained. And that is another key point. People willing to accept crazy things as long as they're entertained.
And who loves you? And who do you love? One more time. Yes!
I mean, some people were willing to accept a certain individual who was a TV talk show personality becoming president of the United States in real life because they were just so entertained by him. That was one of the biggest selling factors.
Here he is, ready to pay the price for our home audience. The Butcher of Bakersfield.
So here's the formula. If you are someone in power and you want to control your population, if you want to suppress dissent, well, then what you got to do is give your people a villain on TV to root against. That way, you can focus the public's anger on someone else. And while they're distracted, then you can get away with anything. And that is, unfortunately, definitely happening 100% right now. The Running Man was right. You just watched part 1 of this series. In part 2, we're going to go even deeper into some of the Running Man's themes. And it's not just the Running Man. Every passing day, classic science fiction stories are starting to become more and more of our reality, and people are starting to notice that. So that's one of the reasons that I wanted to create this series, because it's something that's been on my mind for a number of years now, and I'm excited to finally be creating this. I hope to be covering more prophetic films like They Live, RoboCop, Handmaid's Tale, V for Vendetta, Animal Farm, Starship Troopers, and a whole list of other things that would be really exciting to talk about and explore. So I hope that you'll subscribe and like this video so you'll be there when those videos come out. In other news, so I have a sort of a big announcement to make. If you were a subscriber to this channel, you may have noticed that I've been gone for a very long time. I have not put out a video on this channel in like 14 or 15 months. And that's because during that time, I wrote my own science fiction story. It's called The New World Project, and it's my debut science fiction novel. I had this idea in a dream. It literally came to me in a dream in March of 2024, and during that time I was making videos on this channel. I had just started promising a whole bunch of stuff, and I just had to drop it entirely because I was so inspired by this idea that I just had to write it. And I'm sorry about that, but I'm not sorry, because here I am a year and a half later, and I got a book in my hand, and I'm trying to sell you on this book, and I was not expecting to be here, but here we are, and I'm very excited about it. So I hope that you will like and subscribe and follow this channel, and these little after credit snippets, I'll tell you more each episode. I'll give you the whole plot point and stuff like that. We got to keep this short, but I hope to see you in our future, in our sci-fi future that we're having together right now, here on this channel.